It's another episode of the Christian Reeve Podcast, but are you subscribed? If not, make sure to like, share and subscribe. Spread the word about the Christian Reeve Podcast and enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve Podcast. Today's guest is a podcaster and radio host all the way from Connecticut in New York in the United States. His name is Bill Troveski. Welcome to the show, Bill. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to do this. I'm just going to jump straight into this, actually, because I'm quite fascinated. I had to so here's the thing that I do. Listeners of the show might not know this, but I have like a giant stack of research notes for all my different guests. And obviously I do these way in advance, right? So the last time I looked at this piece of paper was probably about a month ago. So I'm kind of like, trying to remember, get my mind back in the game, so to speak. And the first thing I noticed when I was doing my research is that you have obviously a podcast, which isn't, some mind-boggling thing, but you also have a radio show. And I was like, this is interesting, because this is the first time I've interviewed someone who has a radio show. And I'll be honest, I'm a little bit sort of confused by this concept. So like you're the host of this show. It's called The Way Podcast, and it also airs live on the radio in Connecticut, in New York. So it's a local radio station over there. So like, what drove you to actually create a podcast version of the show, and what topics do you normally discuss on the show?
Sounds good. Yeah, first thing, you have like a notebook there. That's like papers on papers.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, this is a calendar. So, okay, I've never explained this before. So I have like a physical calendar that I use, as well as my phone calendar, because I book so many guests in and other things as well. It's not just podcasting, it's just things in general. And because I never remember, like I usually I'll know that I have something to do on that day. But, I just find it easier that way. The phone gives you the alert, but having it in a physical calendar, I don't know, I'm old fashioned. I like that. But the actual notes is interesting, because when I started doing it, I used to use it as like, this is like the Bible. I have to ask every single question and I'm lost without it. But now I use it more as a guide. I don't get too worried if I don't ask all of the questions. Sometimes I don't, it really depends. And also one thing I try to do, which I would say most podcasts do this, not all, but most of them do, which is if a guest starts talking about something that you've already got maybe 2/3 of the way down in your questions, let it roll. Just make a quiet marker to cross that off, or maybe to sort of just, allow that sort of question in, if you know what I mean, then ask all the questions that are related to that. Because I've noticed, and this is something that I wanted to eliminate straight away, was not sort of going back and forth. So like if someone is in, sort of a dialogue and they're in that for like 20 minutes and you go, okay, yeah, that's great. And then let's go back to where we were 20 minutes ago. It's a bit annoying. I think as a listener, you would be annoyed to hear that. I don't know. It would bug me. So that's just why I do that.
Oh, definitely. I hear some shows where like they'll go on this crazy tangent and I'm like, please ask about that. That sounds really interesting. And the host just brings it all the way back. And it's like, you're going to skip that the guy just was in a plane that crashed 3 times or something? Like
Exactly. That nothing frustrates me more than when hosts do that. Like I'm fully on board with that. I'm always listening and thinking, right, what would the listener want to know about? What would they want to hear? Like, obviously I'll be a bit selfish. It's my podcast. I can ask what I want. So I will ask, what I'm interested in, but I will try to think about, maybe that would be interesting. Let's probe that. Let's go a bit further there. Why? Again, I don't know. Like, I feel like that's probably, especially if you're doing an interview, is probably the most important element of it is the inquisitive nature of it. So, just going back to what we were saying, that element of it is jarring, I think.
Yeah, definitely. With my show, that's the number one thing I had to pick up. I have a researcher who will give me like a nice set of research that I'll read through. Then I'll put my own little questions down so I have them to ask. But like, I don't know if you can see it, but my notes just become like this chaotic sort of mess all over the page. Like
that's what my notes used to look like, and also look like if I try to do, I don't know, if I'm trying to do something and pay attention, like, I don't know, when I was at university, that's how my notes would have looked like. Cause it's just like, you're trying to pay attention and do that. You can't do both. I mean, normally it's like you jot something down like, oh, that'll be useful for clips. Or that'll be, I don't know, remember that thing, check out that thing. I don't know. And then when you look at it afterwards, it's like, what? I don't understand any of this. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but as the show's going, like the bottom right is like, oh, this topic, and the top left's this, and then I cross off and scribble with arrows, and it looks nobody's gonna get this reference, but it looks like the 17 album by Tentacion. Which is that.
Let's bring it back to your show. So yeah, you're the host of the Way podcast, and like I said before, it's airing live on the radio in Connecticut and New York. But yeah, I really want to know why you chose to do a podcast version of the show, and what are the sort of main things that you tend to discuss on the show.
Sounds good. So yeah, originally I went to a local radio station because I'm an engineer myself, and I like the audio
sound engineer.
Mechanical, but I'm actually trying to switch into sound, like in audio engineering.
Okay.
So I'm in that process, but because of this and like the show and how much I've come to enjoy it. But with the radio, I just want to learn the soundboard. I want to learn the editing and maybe do some work for them. But then I decided to take a course with them and get trained to go on the radio. So I started doing the radio, and I said, well, I can easily plug a USB into one of these big computers, take the file and upload for podcasting. Because like with music, nobody really listens to music on the radio. You just use Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. So streaming is sort of replacing the radio industry.
Okay, you say that, but I mean, people driving their cars all day, and before you say it, yes, cars do have Bluetooth and stuff, and you can obviously listen to your stuff in the car, but not everyone wants to. Not everyone has or needs Spotify. You know, like I've been in countless people's cars here in the UK where people just have the radio on and whatever. They don't even think about it. Like, do you not think maybe there's still some value in radio? I mean, maybe it is different in the States. I don't know, but.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not trying to disrespect the radio industry, because it still does. I still love them on the radio. I still upload on the radio, and people that are still listening from the radio for that reason you just said. It's still popular, and it's gonna remain for a while. I'm not worried about that audience going away. But podcasting, I think every year has gone up for like the past 10 years.
Let's talk about a little bit about the format, because obviously you said like, oh, here's an opportunity to just, you know, I'm already doing this. Maybe I'll use this and use it for a podcast. And it's like, okay, but the rules are different, because obviously a typical radio show tends to follow, you know, your standard format, similar to a podcast, but, you know, maybe you have callers in on the show, maybe you have, you know, ad breaks, all of these things. So are you doing like a lot of editing to kind of make it into, you know, a podcast, or is there no editing involved? Like, talk to us about the format of trying to turn that show then into something that you can use as a podcast.
Yeah, definitely. So first things first, since as you can see, I'm not in my studio right now. I'm actually right next to my bed in my bedroom.
Same.
And that
my abode, my crib.
There you go. But because since March, the studio has been closed because of COVID.
Right.
And even though I think you could put glass barrier between some of the microphones and they could make it work, they just chose not to. So
do you think it's maybe because of costs or something, like just keeping the place running? Or
it could be that too. They did offer to ship equipment to each host's house or whatnot.
Oh, cool.
But then you have to sort of share it, and I didn't want to deal with that hassle, so I just got my own stuff. But yeah. But for the studio, I guess how it's different is before COVID, I would air live. Like once I spoke into a microphone, there's a 7-second delay, and it would be right in somebody's car, wherever they have an antenna. And yeah, you could have callers call in. The soundboard was a great tool. I could like maybe click some buttons, have some audio little clips fly in and whatnot. But now, because of COVID, it's definitely become more podcast focused. And then it airs on the radio too because of streaming. And for that reason is because now that I'm back in my place, I edit every episode. I'm able to critique, maybe like clean up the audio. able to. Well, I'm not able to swear now because before I could swear, it was after 10 o'clock. I could say whatever. Can I swear here?
Yeah, I've already sworn, so yeah, you can.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to. I'm trying my best because what I'm trying to do is eventually I want this to get like sponsors and all that stuff. But it's just like it is a lot harder than you think to not swear, even if it's just because I don't consider dropping the F-bomb really as swearing. But
Oh, trust me, I know. About a month ago, little sidetrack. I fucked up and let some swears go through an episode. I was interviewing Ken Lewis, who and basically he's this producer, and he was telling a story about like Eminem coming in, and obviously Eminem swears. So as he's telling the story, mentions those swears, and I forgot to edit that out, and they had a whole meeting for me.
A disciplinary meeting or something, right?
It was, and I walk in thinking like, no, I edit every episode. They don't have anything on me. I don't know why you thought I swore. And they're like, all right, pull up the 3 clips, and they play each clip. Yeah. I was like, shit. I'm doing my best to have a flat face with my hands covering my mouth. Like, I don't know how to defend that. I'm sorry.
It's always it's always puzzled me because when I was growing up as a kid, I was into things like wrestling and just late night TV. I don't know. I suppose it depends on your parents and stuff. But point is, you get exposed to swearing a lot. Like we were already swearing when we were like 7, 8-year-old kids. Like I learned swearing not from my parents, but from other kids in the playground. Like obviously, I would hear my mum swear once in a blue moon, but like. That's where I really learned to swear was like in the playground. And the reason that I bring that up is like it's always kind of fascinated me, this concept of like, oh, we can't swear, we mustn't swear, it's really important. Like in the UK we have a thing called the watershed, right, which is basically just like you show certain programming after like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or something. So before then, no swearing. It's got to be, there can't be any like adult themes, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, go nuts, have a party. But I don't know, it's always kind of struck me as a little bit maybe immature to even have that as a rule. Like, okay, I understand certain swear words, like if you're dropping the C-bomb and it's like midday, that's a bit rough, like maybe avoid that. But like, you know what I mean, like and also there's a lot of like deliberation over what counts as a swear word. So like if you say like bitch in the England, I've heard that in daytime television and that's apparently okay, but drop the F-bomb and suddenly you're like public enemy number 1. I don't understand that. Like
Definitely. I'm like I was watching Family Guy when I was like 13. And even though like the swears get bleeped out, they definitely say stuff that is much worse than swears.
You know what's interesting about that as well is that Family Guy is edited a lot for the UK audience. So like Family Guy is shown quite late at night, like in the UK it's like 11 p.m. or something, but they cut out loads of stuff because it wasn't until I got like the DVDs years later and I heard them dropping like the C-bomb and stuff, and I was like, whoa, I never heard this before. And it's like, yeah, they edit it heavily for the English audience, and I just found that fascinating because I always took America as being the country that was like I guess more censored, like for instance when you guys say like ass, that's apparently like a big deal. But here, I don't know, it's kind of funny. And we say it differently as well. We say arse instead. We even spell it differently as well, but whatever.
Doesn't have an R in the English? Like, isn't it arse?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Well, we say both, but like we more often than not, we'll say arse. Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
Let's bring it back to your podcast. So like, what kind of topics are you sort of talking about on this show generally? What's it for? So obviously it's talk radio, but like, what's the conversations like?
Yeah. So what I like to do is in like 3 words, it's talking with experts. But basically, I like to do a blend between 60 Minutes or Joe Rogan, where like people who are experts in their topic, I sit down and talk with them. So, for example, a journalist spent 7 years in Colombia where he wrote a book on cocaine. So I had him come on the show to talk about what's cocaine like in Colombia, or death row was a topic. An inmate actually called in from death row for an episode, and I talked to him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was an interesting one. And then Woman was in the 2002 Venezuelan coup and talked about that, or even Ken Lewis producing music. So as long, well, or even a flat earther who was an expert because he was on like Netflix and stuff. And that's a different kind of expert, I think. But as long as you're an expert, I talk to the person.
It's cool. It's cool. And what would you say are some of the like major do's and do nots of radio? Like give us a bit of a like seminar on how to do a good radio show.
Sounds good. It's very similar to podcasting. It's just like the service or how it's listened to. But well, when you're in like the studio, I guess the big one is don't swear, but they have a dump button, it's called. So if you swear, you just press it, and somebody tuning in will just hear like 7 seconds of silence. That's the reason of that 7-second delay.
Oh, so you got a bit of leeway then.
Yeah, exactly. So like if I say a swear or make a mistake, or my guest does, he has his own, I'll be like, click it right now. What? That what? And the one I told you about. Oh, and I have 7 seconds to get it done.
Is there like a delay between what the audience at home is hearing and then what's actually going on in the studio? Because I know there is with like television, and a lot of the time that's done on purpose to eliminate that. So it gives the production team like a little bit of time to play with in case there's something extreme that happens. Is it the same with radio?
Yeah, it's a 7-second delay. So like when I'm speaking, maybe like another second it takes to reach the car, but the idea is 7 seconds.
Okay, cool. And yeah, like aside from that, is there any like things that you like really just shouldn't do with radio, or like particular things that you do to ensure that every time the show is as good as possible?
Besides that, I have a lot of leeway. Basically, I can say whatever I want. One thing that I like about the radio a lot is because the studio, it's a lot more, you're just sitting with the person in the studio and you're able to talk about whatever. It's a lot more freestyle oriented, but there's not really any do's or do nots. You're basically allowed to say, at least with my station, you could literally say like, I don't know if you could go extreme and say like, oh, I'm going to go shoot the president tomorrow. But I know I asked like an extreme that came to my head was after 10 o'clock, you're able to swear, say whatever you want. I was like, all right, what's the most extreme I can think of? All right, I'm a white kid. Could I say the N-bomb on the radio if I wanted to for whatever reason? And they said, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How would they justify that? Surely.
I mean, I'm not going to do it, but they said, yeah, you get the freedom. You can literally say that after 10 o'clock.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wonder why. Like, I mean, it's still not okay to say that. Who cares if it's past 10 p.m. or not? Like, I don't get that. Or is it meant in general? Is it like, okay, if we have a black guest on the show, for example, and he drops the N-bomb sort of before 10 p.m., that's not okay, but then after it's cool. Is that kind of what, or like that judges whether or not it'd be bleeped out or something?
Like, there's the FCC guidelines, and once you get into like hate speech or something, I think that's where like then you can't say it. But if you're just saying a sentence and you just drop like that word, or it's still categorized as a swear word. Like same with any derogatory term towards any other race or religion or something, you can still say it for that reason. It's just when you start targeting saying like, oh, I hate those people or blah blah blah, that's where I have to check the guidelines. That's where it might get different.
Interesting. So it's more about intention rather than actual like just saying the word, which I think is more sensible anyway, because a word is just a word, but how you use it is obviously more important. You know what I mean? But anyway,
definitely.
So yeah, tell us what do you think are like the key things that make a good radio show? So not just your show, but just in general, what would you say are the main things that make an excellent radio show?
Yeah, so I from like my first episode, like with everybody else, it slowly changes a lot. You realize like what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. And the key thing I noticed is like basically effort. Like early on, it was all the research, there's still more research now actually, but it's all like, let me ask these questions, let me bring up these stats, these studies, this everything, and format it perfectly. But people sort of just like to hear a conversation. They it's not. It doesn't need to be 2 60 minutes. Like every sentence is extreme and important. It's very like that's why like nowadays I like the more Joe Rogan style where it's just talking to the person, and there's still the research. Now I'm uploading them on each episode on the website, so now I don't have to reference. I don't need to say the EPA says this percent, blah 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 blah. What do you think about this? It's just apparently this is going on. What do you think about this? Or like just more laid back. Like that's the best approach I would recommend.
That's what I'm aiming for with mine. Joe Rogan is one of my biggest inspirations as well. When I look at like my show format and the structure and everything, and I'm just fascinated how he's able to do that. I just sit in a room with a guy or woman, and he knows exactly what to talk about. And obviously he's got a team, like he's got a bunch of people and stuff. But I wonder, like, does he have that? Does he look through like a bunch of research before he sits down with a person? Or is it just kind of like he skims over that and then he just focuses on what he knows and he just makes a conversation? You know what I mean? Because like sometimes it does come across as very random. Obviously, some of it's purposeful. He's going to ask specific things and also let the guests kind of say what they want to say as well. Like he gives the floor, so to speak. And like, I try to do the same with mine, but I feel like sometimes if I wouldn't have just those initial questions and research beside me, I'd feel like lost. I mean, as long as I roughly understood, I think I could probably make it work. But the only times I've ever done that have been with repeat guests. So like friends of the show, people I know I have like chemistry with and we can do something with. But I never want to get caught out. Just go, maybe this time I'll try it without research. And then that's the episode where it's just like loads of umming and ahhing and not knowing what to say,
Oh, definitely. I feel the exact same way. And I know with Joe Rogan, you could make the argument that he's either the dumbest person or the smartest person ever. I say he's the smart. I think he's like a genius, but he does ask like some dumb stuff at times or like seems whatnot.
I think it depends on his guest, I feel like he's a chameleon. You know what I mean?
He definitely. That's why I think he's like a real smart guy for that reason, because he can sit down with like Alex Jones and like make sense there, but then he could sit down with a rocket scientist and like make sense there.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. That's something I do as well on my show. Like perhaps not to the same extent. It's very early days on the show. I mean, I think we're in the 80s now, episode wise. But when I look
I'm a moron, but you're able to make this episode still sound good. Yeah.
So, what do you mean? Sorry.
I'm a moron, but you can make this episode sound good still.
Nah, you're not a moron. Come on, don't be like that. No. Like what I'm saying is that like every guest that you have on the show is different. And there's a couple of things that I always look for that I try to do. So like first and foremost, I want my guests to feel comfortable, because if you feel comfortable, you're more inclined to speak. And it's awkward. You're talking to a stranger, someone you don't know their agenda, you don't know what they're about, you don't know what's going on. And I kind of fully accept that people don't have the time to check out my show beforehand, because I barely have the time to check out what other people are doing because I'm too busy doing what I'm doing, so I fully get that. So I don't have long to kind of make that person feel comfortable and get like a conversation going. You know what I mean? It's something you have to do on the spot and just hope you can charm the pants off them, maybe. But every single person you meet is so different. Some are more introverted and they're doing stuff which is public, but that doesn't mean that you might not still be introverted. I mean, me in real life, I'm fairly laid back. I don't tend to start conversations much. I can easily have conversations. I can do that. I'm happy to do that. But I kind of prefer my own company, But I know there's other people that are the life and the soul of the party. And, I've had them on the show before. And to get back to my point, what I tend to do is allow them to kind of just take the reins as far as like just guiding the conversation in terms of just what they want to say. And all I really do is kind of make sure it doesn't go too far off kilter. And every now and again, I might snap it back and be like, okay, back to this, or like maybe I'll ask a question just to kind of throw their mind back in the game. You know what I mean? But it never really tends to go like that. Like, I feel like a lot of the time when people are doing these sorts of things, they're very sort of cognizant of what's going on and they kind of know the deal. And you know what I mean? So it kind of works. And like, I like to go long form with this anyway. So if it goes an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, like I'm still going to have to clip it up and do all that stuff with it later on. But the actual finished product, I want it to kind of sound, natural, not too jagged. And as you said before, like, you know, that kind of conversational vibe, I think that's really important.
Yeah. And one thing I love with like, as like getting better with the show early on, it would take me probably hours to like edit an episode because there were so many little like stutters, so many little mistakes, so many like, so I gotta crop out that, I gotta crop out it's gotta be perfect, it's blah blah blah, even though like nobody listens to the first ones.
Yeah.
But nowadays it's just
that's a concern of mine too, if people actually bother to listen to the early episodes. I mean, I think there's value in all of them, but sometimes when I listen back and I hear the like lack of confidence, it's just like, I could have done that so much better. God damn it.
definitely. That's why the episode I always like bring up is how I talked to a guy on death row. And I'm proud of that episode, but it also was an early one. So I'm always cautious, like tune into it, but like, should you, do I want you to? I don't know how well it went. I think it went great, but like it's still that same sort of, I don't know how smooth it went back then.
How much prep did they give you before you did it?
I don't know exactly. Maybe like a week. I had time to like research. At this time I had to do it all myself. And I mean, I don't know, probably had like a good amount of time. I usually plan like a week ahead.
And how did the conversation go generally?
So yeah, it was a very sit down. It's interesting because he calls in from death row, so you hear like the phone call, you hear like a sort of a, what do you call those ones, like a payphone style phone call.
Oh wow.
And about the 4 minute mark in, that's when it hit me that I was like talking to a guy on death row. Like it hit me, I got shocked, and there's like 15 seconds of silence where I'm just like I can't even think of the next question. And luckily the guy then ended up taking, like, just started talking about the book, and I was able to crop that out in the final release, and the rest of the episode went great. He talks a lot of facts. He talks a lot about how the situation is and everything around it. So it was a great episode, but like that was still early on and still had that little, I mean, thank you for post-process editing, put it like that.
I think in those situations in particular, it's like that's a time when you don't want to cut it unless there's something extreme that you have to cut out. Like, I don't know, like my approach towards editing has always been like, just do it if it's absolutely necessary. You know, like I've had episodes where maybe the other person's internet was terrible and you have to cut out like genuine pieces of audio or video where it's going for too long, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is just someone waiting for the internet to get better. Like no one wants to hear or see this. But at the same time, as you say, if it's people going, I mean, that's natural part of conversation, isn't it? You know, if I was sitting here cracking a beer with you in real life, that's how it would be. You know, I'm not gonna, you know, I think the key thing I've learned throughout this time is like being prepared and having information that you're willing to talk about with that person is enough. You don't have to worry about like constantly having something to say, because real conversations aren't like that. You know, sometimes you even sit and you have silence, and obviously you can't do that with a podcast. You have to keep it going, but then that's what questions are for, you know. And like I like to kind of have a good understanding of my guests and their lives, so that I know the sort of questions I'm going to ad lib as well, because that's something I know I'm going to do. I didn't used to do that before, but that over time has become a thing, and I'm sure you do it now more and more now. Like once you get more confident, especially on radio, I imagine it's something you just feel like, yeah, this would be good. Let's ask this, and you know.
Yeah, and that's what I like with the radio is I kind of got sort of thrown to the wolves in the sense that you're live after your training and whatnot. Your first episode is live. So like on a podcast, if you fuck up, you can like, clean it up or whatnot. But on the radio, it's like you stutter, you make a mistake, you gotta keep going. You can't stop.
That actually leads me to my next question. So other than that, what are some of the other key differences between podcasting and doing the radio?
So yeah, it's like that. It's freestyle, swearing. You gotta focus on. I don't know. I mean, it's very much the same. It's just a different medium. So like the radio, you get the studio, and you're able to get more locals. While Zoom, well, that's why I like with podcasting. You're able to sort of stream with people across the country, across the world. This is an example. And besides that, I think it's just very similar. It's just a different kind of medium.
So, like, other than some of the things you've already highlighted, what are
Yeah.
some of your other kind of like best moments doing this radio show, or favorite moments, maybe?
Sounds good. Let me actually see because sometimes I forget. So like my favorite, well, I have a few favorites, but a recent one was it's called The Hatless Hacker, but I talked to this guy Alberto Daniel Hill, and he was in Uruguay, and he was the first hacker to be sent to prison. And basically he had this whole crazy story for people who listen to the Darknet Diaries. He was actually one of those episodes, and he was just such a great guy to talk to. And I'm still messaging him. I'm still in contact with him to this day.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I was proud of that. Oh,
do you meet a lot of people through this doing this radio show then?
Yeah. I mean, I meet the people through the radio station, but a lot of the people I meet to appear on the show are like social media. Like social media by far is an amazing tool for this industry. But people are also very excited to be on the radio because the radio still does get a lot of listens, and I still, for that reason, when I talk to a guest, they're always very excited to see, oh, when does it air? What's the station? And I'll tell them Wednesday, 91.7. Because as the podcast is growing, the radio still is my leading category of like what my show is.
And now we've spoken about some of your favorite moments. What are some of the worst moments on the show? Things that you want to forget about, but we're going to remind you because, yay, content.
Yeah, sounds great. So I guess a different one was I did an interview with she used to be a sex worker, and now she's like a leading advocate to legalize it. And that episode, yeah, it was a good episode. It was chill, but sometimes no matter what you do, you're not on the same level with people. And that whole episode just felt kind of off. Like I want to go in one direction, then she goes in the other, and then I make a joke, but we don't have the same kind of style of comedy. And so I'll say like that episode, it was good, but
did
it
you
also
offend
just
her
felt
or something? Or
oh no, I didn't offend or anything. It was just, I guess, awkward's the best way to put it.
Is there any other moments to stick out for you, or is that the worst of the heap?
I'll say looking through the list, I think that's the worst. I've enjoyed my show besides that, and like the death row freezing up for like a minute because like shock.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the worst. I've been so far lucky, I guess.
That's not too bad. That sounds pretty straightforward.
I do have one actually. It was a great episode that was about a guy who toured America and wrote a book and whatnot about, was it conservation efforts? But then an audio issue happened and I lost that episode. And I'm still really upset about that.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, that's devastating.
It was a whole like hour, a ton of research behind it. It went great. I was very happy with that one too.
Oh my God, I got loads of questions now. Well, firstly, I'm sorry to hear that. Like I had a scare one time where it was my mistake. Like a couple of times there's been audio issues because what I do is I record with Zoom and I also record with a separate program, right? And I found that's the best way, because if the Zoom fails, hey, no worries, got this backup. And in future, I want to do even more backups because I'm OCD like that. And I just think it's better to have backups and, things go a bit slower, but you've got that raw file than, to lose it and then just have nothing. So I've had some heart attacks with that. But Okay, so talk us through like when this happened. So obviously you're devastated, but like how is it for the guest, like knowing that, that whole hour was just wasted?
Yeah, first thing I'm gonna need to ask you like what that backup is after, because I need my own backup.
No worries. I got you.
Sounds good. And
Well,
that one
I
I
could
only
just say it now actually. Yeah. So sorry. It's a program called Mixpad. It's by a company called NCH Software. So you guys should sponsor me because I'm giving you a free plug here. But they have a host of different things, and they were recommended to me by a friend. Shout out to Trial by Fire, Aaron. You're awesome. Aaron Wise is a games developer. He recommended that I use a program called VideoPad because I was using Sony Vegas like some noob and wondering why everything was just terrible and taking forever. And the reason why is because it sucks. So I started using this program called Wave. No, hang on. What was it? VideoPad. That's right. And like I said, there's like a host or a suite of different programs, and Mixpad is one of them. And it's essentially just audio recording software. I use it for everything like voice acting, podcasting, you name it. It's a really good tool. And one of the biggest things is it gives you several tracks, which is not like a big deal. I mean, you can do the same with like Audacity, but like sometimes you need those extra things. You know what I mean? Like for me, especially when I started editing and having to cut stuff out and really go that extra mile, because you do need to do that with podcasting. People think, oh, you just plug in and play and that's it, right? But no, if you want to do it properly, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Like when I finish this afterwards, there'll be loads of editing to do, a couple of hours, maybe more. And then that's just the editing. Then there's the scheduling and everything else that's involved. I mean, that's, whatever. But I digress. What did
yeah,
I originally
podcasting is kind of like a second job, but I forgot to.
Oh no. Well, yes, it was your failed show where you lost the audio. How was it for the guest?
Yeah, I reached out. I like apologized. I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Absolutely, I hate this mistake that happened. Any chance you want to come back on the show and re-record?" But I never got a response, so I guess not.
See, I would say yes. I'd be annoyed. If it were me, I'd be annoyed, but I would say yes because publicity is publicity. Do you know what I mean? If someone's reaching out to you, giving you publicity, I mean, go for it, take it. Do you know what I mean? If a radio station called out to me and said, "Hey, we messed up your audio, but we still want to have you on the show," I'd be like, "Hell yeah!" I need the plug. I mean, maybe this person doesn't need the plug. I don't know, but I think generally take advantage of it. People are interested in you. Just go with it.
Yeah, I was hoping. Maybe you didn't even see the email. I don't know, but yeah, it's unfortunate. And I was so far ahead, like schedule wise, where I could finally relax, not worry too much about future guests. But then it's like, oh, there's a whole week's episode back, and now I'm only 2 weeks ahead now.
So, like, when you don't have guests on the show, what are you tending to talk about? Like, what are the sort of standard things? Like, what's the set? Is it just you talking, and you just kind of it's just a talk show with just yourself, or what's the setup like?
I pretty much only have every week's just a guest, so
Oh,
the
okay.
show is it's just like constant guests each week, and that's the show. When the studio opens, I want to start doing like radio only specials where like I'll just invite friends and talk about whatnot, like conversational one. But for now, each week is just a new guest, new topic, and then the next week.
So, this actual radio show has been listed as one of the top 10 listened to radio stations in the whole of Connecticut, which is pretty awesome. So how did you actually, or no, a better question would be to ask you is, what did this award actually mean to you? And like, how large is your listener base?
Yeah, I mean, I joined it when it was top 10. It's like right towards the end, but still top 10.
Hey, still, take it, baby. Take the recognition. You were part of the journey. Go for it.
So I hope I'm helping it grow, and it's just great because like now I'm getting a poster done, like a 3x5 one, where like I'll stand with a friend of mine and on a corner handing out flyers, and the station is WHUS, so I put like a nice little slab on the poster, like, hey, Look at that.
Is it just is it a generic poster of like two guys like this? Like some like, I don't know, 80s sitcom or something.
That'd be fun. That's a good idea. But it's just the logo, Way
Right.
Podcast, little examples, and it's very clean. Like I use canva.com, and it's just like a
Canva's
very
good.
clean minimalist. Yeah. I'm a big fan of it. But it's definitely great, and it's just like, yeah, it definitely makes the whole show feel better and perform better too.
But like I was asking before, like how large is the listener base? Like how many people can you expect to be listening on a, let's say, weekly basis?
I forget, but I think like maybe an average like 1,000 maybe.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I think like that's like maybe the average. I mean, different times have different
Well, roughly
sections.
how many people live in Connecticut?
I'm actually curious too now.
For those who don't know, so Connecticut, as I understand, is a major city in an area called Greenwich, which is in New York. No, New Jersey. Is that right?
Yeah, we're surrounded by Massachusetts, New York, and New Jersey a little bit. We're a nice little state in New England, and the population is 3.5 million.
God damn.
I think
So
it was
like,
like 1,500, 1,600 is the average, but it's been a while since I checked.
how long has this radio station sort of been going, or this radio show been on the air for?
This one, year and a half, 2 years now. I'd say about a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah.
That's pretty good to build a following of at least like 1,000 people listening every week for a relatively new radio show.
Yeah. And I'm happy about that too, because they helped with the station. And my time was different, but now I'm in like new slots and whatnot.
Just
But it's because like the guests definitely help. Like the guests are my show. So like once I show that, it helped with the station definitely.
you
And
you get a lot of
go ahead.
support from the station as far as like promotion and stuff.
Yeah, I finished a little clip. It's like a little 30-second clip of like saying what the show is with like some music and audio. And I don't know when it basically just airs constantly at random points in the week. And then it'll say tune in Wednesdays 5 o'clock. And so that's there's that. They're paying for that poster, like I said, and just little things like that.
So like, where do you sort of draw inspiration from as far as let's say like radio hosts, radio shows? Like, what's inspiring you and motivating you?
I guess I I've talked to a lot of people of a lot of backgrounds, and everybody has, but I've also like talked to like a lot with like a lot of like moving and join different groups and whatnot and all this stuff and like multiple jobs and stuff. And I just met interesting people that I think are, well, for example, like just working at a stop and shop at one point, this guy had like the longest coma in Connecticut. And I just thought that's like, wow, there's a interesting thing. And I really enjoyed hearing the guy's story. And I've always found that when I'm talking to people, other people tend to talk more. And there are even situations where it's like, wow, I just met this guy a minute ago and he just told me his whole life story. Great.
It's funny how like some people are willing to do that, aren't they? They just want someone to listen a lot of the time.
Yeah, pretty much. And I always enjoy listening though, and always love looking at random Wikipedia articles or like random little YouTube videos. And I love learning little stuff, like delving into it. So I enjoy like talking to people and I love learning stuff. So I sort of use my podcast in a way. It's not so much like it's a show and I love airing it, but I also do love doing the show because I love talking to these people and learning these things. Like I use like the Venezuela coup as an example. Like I do love learning a little bit of history or a few philosophy episodes. Like I just really love learning this stuff. So I'm like, all right, sweet. Here's a, I don't want to say tool, but here's like a way for me to do what I enjoy.
So like, how many episodes into the podcast version are we talking now? How many do you have?
35 just aired, and I'm recording 39 tonight, I think. So
Crikey.
yeah.
All right, yeah. So we're getting fully in. What's the response been like so far online?
It's been good. Some a few people like my message in from the radio saying like, oh, I really like this episode. I only heard the end. Where can I find the whole episode? And it's like, oh, great. That shows interest. So then I'll try to direct towards the podcast so we can see the whole thing. And so like responses like that I enjoy. Apple Podcast getting some nice reviews or whatnot, but I feel like a few of them are other podcasts are trying to like plug or something. I don't know. But overall, I'm getting good responses, good emails, and I'm happy with the show.
Yeah, I just want to say on a side note, I hate that. Like, if anyone ever comments on my posts, I get it on like TikTok and Instagram and places like that. They're like, oh, hey, yeah, if you like this, why don't you check out this? And it's like, I'm never going to check out your thing because you're promoting on my thing. Like, if you want me to check out your stuff, email me privately or message me privately and say, hey, Christian, nice to meet you. Make a conversation with me. Give me a reason. Establish a connection. Because that's another thing as well. So many people get in contact with me like, hey, check this out. Like, I'll give you a really good example. Sorry, just a quick rant because this annoys me. There was a guy who contacted me the other day, right? And if you're listening to this, I hope you're listening to this because you annoyed me. But I kept it professional. So it's a typical kind of promotional thing like, oh, hey, yeah, we can give you promotional services, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, hey, yeah, you know, right now I'm not in a sort of financial situation to be able to accept that. But thank you for your offer. All the best to you. And I thought that would be the end of it. And he's like, word for word, this is what the guy says. He's like, well, at least follow this page and this page. And I just literally just said, why? Why should I? You know what I mean? Like trying to make me feel bad. Like, oh, at least do this. If you're not going to give me money, at least do this. How about at least fuck off?
At least fuck off a little bit. How about that?
Just, you know, the audacity. And here's the thing. There are so many people in the world right now, content creators, podcasters, right? Because like we've been given this time. You know, some see it as a curse, some see it as a blessing. I see it as a blessing. I've chosen to use this time to work my ass off and really finally do everything that I wanted to do and just actually give it a go. You know, actually try and make it a reality for myself. And you know what? It feels like it might be going somewhere. There's some positivity I'm seeing in the community. More and more people are joining, getting positive reviews for the podcast, blah, 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 right? But one thing I know that doesn't ever work is like when you try to kind of almost like beg people to check you out, both in real life and on social media. Like people don't care. People only care when they hear about you. When other people say, you got to check this guy out. You got to check this woman out. They're amazing. Like when people start doing that, I'm sure it's the same with your radio show. A lot of people, I'm sure, come across the radio show because someone else says, oh yeah, you got to check out this show on this radio network. It's awesome. You know, because that's what most people go through is recommendations from other people, right? It's rare that you just stumble across things. It does happen, but it's rare. And a lot of the time that's the case. Like what I make sure is that every single podcast, every single video, every single live stream that I do has an element of consistency. You're always getting roughly the same thing, even if it's different every time. And therefore, you know what to expect every time. And you know what you're signing up for as well. That should be the advertisement, not me telling you, hey, check me out. Hey, please subscribe. That's not the advertisement. That's a nice reminder, sure, but that shouldn't be your advertisement. End of rant.
Yeah. No, that's definitely accurate. Like right off the bat, if you message people saying, hey, on Twitter, I see all the time, like, hey, look at my podcast, look at my podcast. It's like, no, you're an advertisement. People don't like ads. When I'm watching a show and an ad comes on, I go in the other room.
Do you know, that's a really good point that I've never thought about as well. Yeah. Like, we always tend to avoid ads. That's why we have ad blocker on YouTube. It's you know, it's annoying. When you see an ad, it's annoying. It's like, if anything, it makes you hate that thing. Like, and that's unfortunate, but that's the reality. So yeah, if you see unsolicited messages constantly in your feed, it's like, why do you care about this? Like it makes you angry towards that thing. And you know, the way I try to kind of relax things. You know, I'll always plug a new video where possible, but I don't plug everything. You know what I mean? Because it's just too much. And to my own audience as well, it's too much. Like I've noticed subscribers fall off some of my YouTube channels because of this, because I was posting too much. And it's fair enough. I would find that annoying. I mean, you do have options. You can turn off notifications and stuff, but still, like, people don't think that far ahead. You know, if they've gone to the sort of the trouble of checking you out, following you, whatever, that's a big deal. So if you then abuse that by just inundating them with crap, it's just going to put them off, and they're not going to want to be a part of that. And you're sort of out doing all of your work, you know what I mean? Because just getting someone on board, that's a huge achievement.
Yeah, it's like a tough tightrope to walk, because you still want to plug yourself. Like me, I just use my website, the end, instead of everything, because you still want people to, hey, check me out, but you don't want to do that for that reason. What I've used now, or my go-to, is I upload my stuff, the end, but since I have guests, I never even ask them, like, hey, plug it yourself. It's just, hey, I'm going to upload on my stuff. And if they upload it themselves, I am extremely happy, because it's like what you said. It's that, like, somebody, you know, telling you, hey, check out this podcast. Like when the person from the show says, hey, I was on this show, it tells their audience, yo, check out this podcast.
And like, I've said this on the show before, so I'll make this quick, but like, even people in my own network, people I'm friends with, fellow content creators, like, you have to understand, if you are a content creator of some description, you're busy doing stuff, creating, maybe not even creating, maybe be doing other stuff in your life. If someone sends you a video, it's like, okay, what do you want me to do with this? Like, I know you want me to check it out, but it's like, you didn't ask me. You didn't say, like, okay, if one of my friends would say, hey, Christian, would you mind checking this out, man? I really want, like, your thoughts on this. Or like, hey, would you mind checking out this? I'd really like you to be a part of this. If someone says that, I'm going to be more inclined to go check them out, and I'll want to help them out because I know they helped me out, and it's there's that personal connection there. But if it's just, hey, uploaded a new video, hey, got a live stream, like, there's a guy in my network who does this, and I've spoken about him before. I'll never mention him by name because it's unprofessional, and I wouldn't want to shame him like that. But he knows who he is, and he's done it several times in my messages, and it's like, dude, I'm not going to check out your stream. I'm not going to check out your video, because you just post it at me like you just, there's this expectation that I'm going to check it out. It's like, well, do you think I just sit around doing nothing all day? Like, oh, I'll check that out, I've got nothing better to do. It's like, no, I have got stuff better things to do. No offense, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, unless you turn around to me and there's that nice, because, and here's the thing as well, some people might think I'm being a dick here, like, by saying that, but it's like, I would expect the same. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I would just post a video to you and I would just be like, hey, check it out, I would expect you not to check it out because I've not been polite or given you a reason to care. Whereas if I, create that personal connection and that personal message, I mean, I don't expect them to check it out, but I think there's a better chance that they will. And it's more of a friendly gesture. And here's the thing, you can't abuse that either. You got to save that for, like, special occasions. You know what I mean? Like, if someone truly wants to consume all of your content, they'll subscribe, they'll follow you, they'll join your Discord or whatever. But a lot of the time, people just check out a couple of things here and there. And, I sometimes try to do it. I try to drop in randomly unannounced, and I'll drop in a friend's live stream, or I'll, like, there's a guy, shout out to Buckmeister Cole. He's a friend of mine, fellow content creator. He does a thing on Instagram where he raps freestyle. It's really cool, right? Nice. And every now and again, I'll drop in his stream and I'll just, like, message him, like, silly stuff to get him to rap. And it's fun and it makes it really good and enjoyable and people have a good time, right? But I don't do that all the time. I do it once in a while. You know what I mean? If I got 5 minutes, I see his stream and I'll go check it out. And that's the reality. Like, when you're that busy, it's, you don't often have those moments where you're just sitting on your phone, not doing anything. And you're like, oh yeah, cool, I'll check it out. I'll do it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, 100%. And like those plugs you were saying earlier where it's like, oh, can I have some improvement or something? I agree. But then I also see a ton of people say that, and it's like episode 1, 2, or 3. And like when I first started, I had the biggest urge to, like, sort of go everywhere, like, oh my God, like, because it's like all exciting to you. But you give it some time and then do that, But like what you were saying with like, well, basically, I had this guy on my show. I think I mentioned him earlier, Ken Lewis. He for people who don't know, he has 103 gold and platinum records now. He's a producer. He's worked with like Eminem, JC, Kanye West, all that stuff. And he said like he's like huge. Like compared to me, he's like beyond. He's like, I don't know what's a good scenario. I'm like 1 inch off the ground. He's like 5 miles off the ground.
Okay.
Like that. He but he says he gets so many Twitter, so many Instagram, so many like messages of people just saying, "Hey, check out my mixtape," because he's a producer. They want him to listen. And he's like, "No, if you say check out my mixtape, I'm not gonna check out your mixtape. Just because you plug it, whatever, I'm not gonna do that. I want you to either like grow, like prove yourself in some way or something. But I am so busy making these songs, all this stuff. I don't have time to plug in your half-hour mixtape or whatever."
Yeah, it's stupidity. I hate to be mean to those people, but like you're not thinking enough. It's like I've messaged some of my favorite content creators, but like really super famous people, right? And I never expect a response back because they're too busy to read what some random English guy's messages from bumfuck nowhere who has like less than however many followers. Like who the fuck am I? Why should they care? Like, do you know what I mean? They're too busy doing their stuff. And even if I was super successful at their level, I still wouldn't expect a response if I don't know them. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing that I do as well, is unless I know someone, I've met them, I don't tend to respond. You know what I mean? Like, the only exception I'll make is if I've seen that someone is a regular follower of mine. Like I do this on Instagram sometimes, right? When you get someone who's been in quite a few live streams, they comment a lot. That they're clearly part of the community. Then I'll follow them back, and I might sort of message them now and again. But it's something that I know can change as well, because I think at this level, when you're still growing, you're able to do that. One day, I'm just not going to have the time to do that because it's, things will grow, things will expand, we'll have a big following. And then you know what I mean? Like it will actually be impossible, not just because of the time element, but because you have so many. As you said, he gets like thousands and thousands of messages a day, right? Like, what's he going to like look through like all 100,000 of them? Cost bloody not. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that'd be madness. Even if he'd employ a PA to sort that out, they still wouldn't have enough time to do that because it's just an inevitable kind of ever increasing thing.
Yeah, there's only like so few up at like that top level where he is, and you're talking like a whole country and maybe other countries trying to like message. So I'm sure he gets so many. He told me a story like one time he was like walking through New York, and these people were on the corner trying to sell like a rap album, and he was like, "All right, you know what? Let me give me that. I won't tell you who you are. I I won't tell you who I am, but I think you should give me that album." And the guy's like, "No, it's $3 or $5."
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that dude, like, that's one of the times he's gonna take one, and whoever was handing those out completely blew his chance right there.
Jokes. That's amazing. Do you know what? I've met those sorts of people in Hollywood. I was in Hollywood one time, and they're very forceful. Like, I remember we were just tourists walking past, and they were like fully like, "You need to buy this. You need to buy this." And it's like, dude, fuck off. Like, I don't want to buy you a shitty album that you made for like less than $1 that you're shoving in my face. Like, work on your sales pitch, my friend. Do you know what I mean? Like,
why do I need to buy this?
well, no, look, I mean, listen, I know everyone's got to make a living, and like, if you're out on the street trying to, I've been there, I've done that. I was in a metal band for like 3 years or something. And, we would try and get people to buy our albums. But here's the thing. I didn't shove it in people's faces on street corners, people that I know probably aren't going to buy it, right? You think about these things. Okay, we book a metal show, right? So there's going to be people that like to listen to metal music that paid to see the show. So set up a merch stall, have your stuff there. That makes sense. Those people are likely to buy that. Not Joe, mama and papa walking on the street in the middle of the daylight in, I don't know, California. Like, they're just there to have a nice day. They don't want to be hounded by you, And like that's a good example as well. Like, I mean, obviously they had no idea who that guy was, but like, if you're if you're selling a record for £3 to £5 on the street, right, and someone says what you just laid out, I would just give it for free. I would give freebies now and again. Do you know what I mean?
Might
Just
as well, yeah.
yeah, like how does it really affect you? Like I mean, I remember even when I made my records back in the day, it didn't cost that much to create. Like, because once you've initially created the records, then it's just reproduction, and that, I mean, you could do that yourself for relatively cheap. I mean, most people listening to this podcast won't know what this is if they're in the younger generation, but that's what burning CDs is. Like, you know what I mean? That's where that comes from, and that's free. But whatever, their loss, huh? Wow.
Yeah.
Rough for him. He should have taken it one step further and told them who he was afterwards. That would have been amazing.
You just reminded me. He when he walked away, he said, "You guys know Kanye West?" And they said, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I produced for him."
Oh wow!
So he did, yeah.
How did they react? Do you know how they reacted? Or
I don't know. I think he just kept walking.
okay.
I don't know. I made like a joke right after. I'm like, man, I'd be on my knees, like, no, take the CD, like fucking holding it up like it's a sacred thing, please.
Yeah.
I don't know how they reacted, but like they probably were kicking themselves. I'll say that.
Either that, or they probably thought he was just like some crazy dude. They're like, oh yeah, whatever. I bet there is that kind of self-assured attitude, because that's the weird thing as well. Like about people in that position, it's like, because you get people like that in the UK, and it's like their whole ideology is, oh, we're an unknown band, we've really got to push ourselves. But the thing is, when you're unknown, here's the deal: like, no one cares about you, right? And what I mean is, okay, that sounds like a really obvious thing to say, but like I get comments now and again from people who say to me, wow, like, I can't believe you have such a small following. Like, you do really good content. And this isn't me going like, oh, isn't that great? I'm getting comments like that. No, the reason that I'm bringing that up is that I know why that's the case. And this is my response to these people is, well, I'm a nobody, right? And the first thing you look at when you discover a new content creator is you look at how many followers they got, generally speaking. Not always. Now, I don't care. Like, I subscribe to people all the time that don't have a lot of followers. Like, I found some really amazing content creators recently, and they've got like less followers than me, but they're amazing. And I'm like, wow, I hit the jackpot, because when I talk to these people, they'll respond. So it's a win for me. But most people don't think that way. Most people are like, meh, whatever. Like, who's this guy, right? But that's the thing. Once you start progressing and you get to certain levels, suddenly that begins to change ever so slowly. So like, if you take YouTube as an example, I reckon when you've got like maybe like 10K, something like that, like you're starting to progress, like people will probably more than likely subscribe to you, check out a few videos before they leave. You know what I mean? Like, what I see as a kind of a trend on my channel is people quite often will check out one video and then check out like 6 other videos and then leave, right? I just think that's really funny, but it's cool. I like that, because that says to me, okay, people are taking notice, because, you know, maybe 2 years ago they weren't doing that. So there's levels to this thing. And I think that a lot of people forget that. They don't think about that. And they just get too fixated on numbers. And as we know, I mean, it takes so very little to change things. I mean, in the world of content creating, as far as video is concerned, all it takes is one video. But in terms of podcasting and radio, I mean, all it takes is that one guest, you know, that one interview, you know, that one moment, and like, boom, sky's the limit after that.
Yeah, it's true. And there's definitely like some guests that like make a wicked difference. I've had some episodes go up, but then the next episode, it's like an episode I think people would like goes right down. I'm like, wait, what?
That's why I
really
always
just like that topic.
That's why I always aim for the consistency element, because I have the same thing, but like what I tend to do with every episode of the podcast, like going in, is I try to have zero expectations. I just go into it thinking, okay, focus on making this consistent and focus on making this as good as it possibly can be. You know what I mean? So if there's difficulties, even if you're noticing them during the course of the podcast, don't think about it. Just focus on the goal. And normally that works. And you know what? Like, then it's just subjective, isn't it? You know, and people listening will find different things. Like sometimes people tell me like, oh, I really enjoyed this episode. And I'm like, maybe I wasn't as keen on that episode. Like, you know, I didn't really feel like it was my best one. And then one that I'm really proud of, there's like no one cares. So it's interesting. I don't know. It's I mean, it's just different opinions, I guess, isn't it?
Definitely. For an example for me is like I did an episode on a plastic and like its pollution effects, and that's an episode that I think is a important deal. I like it, and that did very well. I was completely surprised. And then like my recent one is on China, and I think it went a great episode. I expected to perform very well, and so far it's growing like not as well as like the episode before, the one before that. I'm like, why is that?
Have you also noticed as well, like I find this a lot, especially when I do like stuff for TikTok or sometimes even YouTube as well. Like I'll make a video and I'll put very little effort in. I'm like, whatever, I got an idea, I'll put it out. Like I'll make it good, you know, it'll have the nice thumbnail and everything it needs, but like I don't put a lot of effort in. And that's the video. Like I'll give you an example, right? My best performing video on TikTok right now, which has gotten me like over 1,000 followers. Like, so before this, I had, I don't know, maybe like 150 followers or something, right? And then this one video has blown. It's got like, I think about 630K views, 630,000 basically. And the follower count keeps going up because interestingly, when a lot of people are actually watching your video on a platform like that, they just randomly follow, which I guess makes sense, but it's just like, that's interesting. But literally the quality of the video is shit. Like it's a clip from a longer video. So the actual video was like maybe 10-minute video that I uploaded to my second channel, right? And it was just exposing a scam in the UK. So most of the video was shot like this, facing me. And then there's a point where, because I don't, I just use literally a handheld camcorder from like 7 or 8 years ago. It's low budget stuff. You work with what you have. Anyway, when it came to actually showing, because the scam was on a mobile phone, right? So I had to show the message, and I thought about different ways I could do this. Like I know I can, and maybe I probably should have done it. As you know, this is the reason I did it. So normally I would just put screenshots within the video, right? But because I needed to interact with this text and the links, that's why I filmed it like that. So it looks like crap. And when I uploaded the clip onto TikTok, I cut it so it's just the bit where I'm looking at the phone and explaining it. And that's what I uploaded to TikTok. And as you may or may not know, like you only get like a minute to work with. So I just uploaded that, and that's the video that does well. What the fuck? like zero effort in that. Like obviously, there was effort like filming that video, but it wasn't that difficult. Like mostly I was just talking about it. I wasn't even really giving much of an opinion. I was like, lol, isn't this obviously a scam? Ha ha ha. End of video.
You want to go to your audience and kind of be like, what's wrong with you people?
Well, I don't get it. And it's not always that way. Some of the other clips that have done well have been like controversial clips from the podcast, which that makes sense at least, because it's like, okay, it gets people talking, people have a massive argument in the comments. Great. My interaction's up. I don't care. Run away to the bank with that. But it makes sense. I like logically, but when it's poor quality stuff, like I said before, I always put the effort in, but it still doesn't change the fact that like no effort has gone into this. Whereas everything else I do, music, comedy skits, acting, whatever, that I actually prepare and put effort in, and then it just gets like, few views, one or two of them might pop off, but most of them don't. And it's just like, I don't understand this at all. But keep trying, I guess.
I guess it's like the substance in a way, but you got to pick like the right substance. Like that was the right substance. But I saw this podcast. It's the I Can't Sleep podcast. And basically the guy reads like Wikipedia articles to help people fall asleep. Like it's supposed to be so boring. They fall asleep.
That's amazing.
But Yeah, and if it's like good substance, like he's reading interesting stuff, but it's like that point where it's so like narrow or so interesting quotation marks that it puts people to sleep.
And that's dangerous as well, because like for some people it might actually be interesting. So it might have the adverse effect, and you get like really intrigued, and you sit there like 2 hours into this Wikipedia thing, wanting to know like, oh, what's next? Like, yeah, tell me more about that serial killer. Oh my god, like, or the geopolitical situation in Israel. Like, I don't know, like, like interesting stuff.
And now sun's rising as you look out the window, be like, oh shit,
Oh, no,
I got work in an hour.
I did it again. God damn it. All right. Anyway, moving it on. What do you think are some of like the secrets to being a good radio show host?
Yeah. So like we said Joe Rogan before, and I like to use him as an example because yeah, he's podcast, but he's still very good at what he does. And I watched the video to like take notes on what makes it special and what do I want to apply for like the radio show. And it's sort of a combination of I like to speak very fast. Like in public settings, I'll like speak very fast and I like go in a general direction and like, but then I'll slow down and whatnot. So a big step is just slowing your voice and making sure every word is heard. And then you go deeper and say, make sure like the power words are emphasized. I never worried about that too much, but it's more you have to slow yourself down, get the point across clear, versus like in everyday life, people want to speak sporadically. And a big challenge too is you got my hands like just below the camera, so you don't see it as much, but I move my hands crazy. Like I come from an Italian family. So when I'm speaking, I'm literally acting like my whole, like if I point an arrow, I actually do like the arrow motion and everything. But people tuning in, they don't see that.
I do that as well. I don't know why. It's interesting. Because I don't think any of my parents do that. But like, yeah, I'm gonna, especially like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's a weird like intellectual flex. So I'll be sitting there on an armchair, like, you know, oh, it's like this and like that. And then I realize what I'm doing, and I'm like, you look like a twat. What are you doing? But it's like you're not consciously aware because you just, you know, yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, throughout this episode, I see you moving your hands too, and I'm like, oh, he does that too.
Yeah, but at least in your culture that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? I'm just some British guy. Like you know, my family, from what I understand, historically didn't go anywhere. I think I got some French and Irish blood on my dad's side, but other than that, boring. Stayed in England, never did anything. What? But I don't know. I have a fascination with traveling and going to different countries and living abroad. So that's how I'm different, I guess. But yeah, whatever. Anyway, this ain't about me.
That's why one of my big goals is to have the podcast get me enough money that I could literally like go to Europe, maybe interview a guest there or something, but like basically be able to move wherever I want. Because podcasting, yeah, there's like a studio, but it doesn't require you to be in one space. So I want to be able to go to Germany, Italy, Japan, like whatever country.
So you're looking to kind of set up your own thing then, your own sort of traveling podcast, by the sounds of things.
That would be interesting. It would still be the same theme, but it could be like cool segments or something. Like just, I want to be able to travel. It just, like you said, it seems very interesting.
Cool, dude. Cool. And what advice could you give to people that want to get into radio and podcasting?
Yeah, so do it.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
I see so many people like who love watching those motivational YouTube videos or these motivational stories, and so many podcasting, but like in every dynamic, people are always saying, check it out, my new streaming station or my channel or my new podcast, all this stuff. I'm doing this. I'm doing all this stuff. And the second you say you're doing something, or like, basically that's when you lose. Like you have to do it, because when you say you've done something, you get that satisfaction that you've already done it, even though you haven't. You've only taken like the first step.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, when you first start out. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. I know what you mean. Yeah, that's because you sort of touched on that before when you said like, oh, when people reach out and they've only got like a couple of episodes behind their belt, and it's like it's kind of a pointless time to ask. Because I've said this before on the show, like when I hear like someone setting up a podcast and I know the type of person they are. Not necessarily saying they won't stick with it, but it's like a podcast is a lot of work and commitment, and it's like. I mean, I remember when I first set mine up, I'd done a podcast before with a couple of friends, and we'd ended it prematurely, unfortunately, but I still wanted to go. And I've been thinking about doing a podcast for a long time, but I was just like, I don't know, I don't have an idea. I don't know, will it be good? Blah, 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 blah. And eventually I just went for that mantra of that idea that I should just do it and then just see what happens, but maybe just keep it as like a discussion / because originally it was just going to be a discussion podcast where I just spoke at length on a topic like I do in my vlogs. And once in a blue moon I'll still do that, but I think the money, if you like, is in doing interviews and talking to people. I feel like most comfortable. People seem to enjoy it more as well, so I've just kind of run with it. But I don't think I really found my footing with this podcast until maybe 20 or 30 episodes in, to be honest. And like I feel like you're always constantly learning and growing, and do you know what I mean? And you always look back at like the past 50 and you're like, no, I feel like now is the best time, because before I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm sure in 50 episodes from now I'll say the same thing then, you know. It's, it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I keep seeing that a lot with groups where they'll all make a podcast, but then some people aren't interested, but one person still really enjoys it. So they'll like keep the show going, but the rest sort of don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, like it always kind of scares me when people reach out to me if they want me to appear on their show, and it's literally just a group of people chatting. Like that's my idea of a nightmare. That's not a podcast. I'm sorry. Like I know some of you have done it and made it work, and fair play to you. Like some of them that I've been on, they actually have segments and they cut it up and it's good and it works. But I've heard so many where it's just literally like I remember one guy said to me like, oh yeah, we literally just record our conversations and put it online. And I'm like, why? like you need to have, like, the whole point of a podcast is the listener needs to be able to follow some sort of narrative. You know, it's like when you listen to an audiobook, you know, there's a story, you know, you listen to a song, there's an eventual ending, you know where it's going, you know what I mean? Like if you just have a conversation that you've uploaded and every time it's a conversation, I mean, you run into so many problems, like that aggravating problem we spoke about earlier of, you know, returning to an issue maybe an hour after you've already spoken about it, or, you know what I mean, like forgetting stuff, or I don't know, whatever. Like there's so many issues with not just having that basic structure. Like you can still, don't get me wrong, you can still have like mates in a room having a laugh, but it's got to be mates in a room having a laugh with a bit of structure that you work with. At least one person is taking control of the situation and guiding it. You have to have that. You can't call it a podcast otherwise.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Or else like, and then people will hit like that brick wall. Like, all right, like you're in the group setting for the podcast and you got nothing to talk about. So how was your day? Oh, it was good, man. I drove to the gas station. Wow. And then you're in your car listening to it and you're like,
who the fuck cares? Great. Yeah. It's like, I don't want to know about the fact that you dropped your keys and the cashier looked at you funny and like, you know, you filled your gas tank for half an hour. Like, who the fuck cares? Tell me something interesting. Tell me how, I don't know, the cashier told you to go fuck yourself. That's interesting. I want to hear that. Like, you want to hear something that breaks you, not like you don't want to hear the norm because you're living the norm. Like you want something that takes you away from the norm and makes you think, oh yeah, life can be interesting sometimes.
Yeah, you want something that sucks you and not the boring every day. You want something to escape from that every day, to listen to something unique.
You know, the irony with that as well is most things start out like that. I'm sure that's how podcasts probably started in the beginning. I remember that's how Twitter started in the beginning. Do you remember when Twitter started? Do you remember what that was like?
A little bit, but I think I liked it a little bit more because then you got to see the celebrities' thoughts.
Oh, dude,
Well,
in the very
nowadays,
beginning though, like I'm talking before the celebs even got on there, when it was like literally just started. It was people fucking going like, "Oh yeah, I had some Weetabix today. Oh, I might go outside now. Oh, I had a packet of
dope.
crisps." That was the extent of the tweets. That was it's like Paris Hilton ate some crisps. Oh, great. Van bloody tastic. Why do I care about that? But
I'm
then at
glad I
some point it got hijacked and it changed, and it became more what it is today. So
yeah, I'm glad I logged into Twitter today. I feel like that's kind of modern Facebook. I don't use Facebook, but
yeah.
I feel like that's a lot today. Like, oh, my dog went for a walk today, or picture of your bowl of cereal or something.
Yeah, I've got mixed feelings about Facebook because I only use it because of family, some friends, and then to be honest, content creating. I'll say this much: if I wasn't doing this, or no, if I could get a management team to like manage my account, I would never use Facebook again. I don't know, I'd figure out a way, because I've still been trying to figure out a way of like making my account, I don't know. My account already has the highest privacy settings imaginable, but I barely use Facebook, like my actual profile. Like I interact in some groups and stuff, but like it's mostly just meme stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like now and again, but like ultimately, yeah, I don't really use it. Like who uses Facebook anymore? Like you say, people in their like 50s are sharing pictures of their kids and dogs and shit, and it's like, okay, great, I'm glad you're happy, but most people aren't really, because it's not really got much interest in stuff. And now people are starting to use it as basis for fact. Like they get their news from there, and it's like, oh Jesus
Oh, that's
Christ,
deadly.
that's
That's
the
brutal.
beginning of the end of civilization right there. But
Yeah,
you're right.
literally.
You're right about Twitter though. Twitter's become. I mean, Twitter still has a bunch of crap on there. Don't get me wrong, but it's. I feel like when something is going on in the world, like Twitter's the first to know about it. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't know. It just
Yeah,
seems that way.
I have my different uses for it. Like Facebook, I lost my password like 3 years ago, and I haven't bothered to get that back.
Yeah.
For the show, I literally made Facebook, and that was it. I don't even use it. But Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit, I love for each reason. Like Instagram, I say up to date social with friends and family, whatnot. It's cool. You get interesting posts of what's going on, description. Twitter is like where I get my news. Well, and Reddit, but Twitter, you get your news from like what's going on with like say this sports team or
Yeah.
this celebrity. You get to see their takes, what they upload. While Reddit is like just sort of there is the news feed that I love. That's my favorite for news. I wish everyone would get their news from there because
From Reddit.
yeah, it sounds crazy, but when you look at it's nothing but articles. So you see like the Guardian or even New York Times or even New York Post. Like you see the different sides.
Do you know what? I agree with you there actually, because a lot of the time with Reddit, you get sort of karma points, bonus points, more prestige if you actually post a legitimate source. Whereas if you just post any old crap, people will call you out for it. So yeah, I agree with you there. I think there's some yeah, no, I suppose it depends where you are on Reddit, because there's a lot of toxicity on Reddit, but then there's a lot of sources on there and useful subreddits for news and history and culture and stuff. So yeah, fair
Yeah,
enough.
because the right ones like they get fact checked. Like they have to be good news sources. And even like the majority, like I'm among the majority where I'll see a headline and I'm like, I don't want to read a whole article right now. But I love a top comment will be like snippets from the article, taking out the most important detail. So it's like
TLDR, that's what it is. Yeah.
exactly. What's that stand for again? I forget.
Too long didn't read.
Yep.
Do you know what is so true as well? Because a lot of the time when you do read those articles, like legitimately, you don't like that article could have been a paragraph, but they choose to
Yep.
fluff it up because they have to justify their payroll and their jobs and stuff. But it's like that didn't need to be 1,200 words. It's just the news. It's the journalist, having fun with their ego. Like, yeah, I'm a writer. I write passionate stuff. You know, it's like it's rare that it's like you need to read all 1,200 words of it. Like sometimes, but rarely. Most of the time, yeah, it could just be a quick.
Yeah,
Here's
there are
what's going
some like capture me, but yeah, a lot of it is fluff. Like, all right, if we put 2 more paragraphs, now we can squeeze another ad, and maybe 2 more, we can squeeze in another little ad, and right there, that's money.
That's the real reason they do it. Yeah.
That's why I love Reddit, because the TLDR like is perfect. It literally gives you the bulk. They'll throw in like the stats, and then I walk away with like a decent understanding. So that's why I wish everybody would get on it. But the older generation tends to like Facebook, and that has a history of not being accurate. Put it like that.
Facebook annoys me anyway. Like I had an account before my current one. So my account before was my like original that I made in like, I don't know, 2009, 2010, something like that. And I deleted it because I wanted to delete it. And then they just never deleted it. And I've since messaged Facebook saying like, hey, can you please delete this? I don't use it anymore. And I haven't done for the past 11 years. And they still won't delete it. And it's like, the fuck? Like, what?
They're trying to keep like their numbers up. Like, oh, we have this many profiles. That's what I would guess.
I don't know, man. It's stupid.
I want to delete mine. The problem is, like I said, I don't know my password. And then I enter the email, what is my password? And I don't even know my email. So I don't know what I do.
Yeah.
That profile is up, probably run by some Russian bot, posting some crazy article, conspiracy theories. And I'll have no idea.
Bill, you're just going to look like a crazy man. And they'll be like,
Bill,
why are you saying all these things on Facebook? What's wrong with you?
All my friends from, like all my old high school friends would look at him and be like, geez, what happened to this kid? Holy shit, he fell off the deep end.
So moving it forward, do you have any sort of jobs outside of broadcasting, or is this just your full-on career now?
I wish it was my full-on career. No, I'm in the process of looking for a mechanical engineer job.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, sorry, you said in the beginning. Yeah, cool.
But at the same time, I'm trying to switch fields. Like I had a interview with the Studio 71 because I want to be like an audio engineer, and this has all been a great resume, but it's still hard to actually get the job. So I'm trying to become like a production assistant or just like a freelance worker somewhere.
It's so true, dude. Like I've got a degree in 4 years experience in marketing, and I've been unemployed for the last year. It happens, man. It's crazy. Like, and I've had more work and success with freelancing. That seems to be the career that's happened, and I'm fine with that. That's what I want, because I want financial freedom. I want not just financial freedom, freedom of time, freedom to choose hours, because I think that's the thing as well, is everyone is productive at different times. I don't think the whole 9 to 5 thing really should apply for everyone. And yeah, I've spoken to people on the phone as well where they won't allow remote working, and they say their workers love it, like love being in the office. And I'm like, screw you, you're wrong. Like, they're just too afraid to say that they don't want to. Like he actually had the audacity to say that to me. Oh yeah, my workers love working in the office. They miss it so much. It's like bullshit. Don't feed me that bullshit.
In the background, they're crying, or like every time the boss comes in, they're like, "Oh shit." Yes, I'm so happy here. Yes,
I love it. It's great.
They got tape pulling the lips up so they're smiling.
Jesus. Okay, so yeah, you want to be a sound engineer. That's the plan then. Well, best of luck with that, man. I hope it works out for you. And yeah, I mean, it's not too much of a departure from what you're doing now, really. I mean, it's certainly you're in the right field, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I hope so, and I hope it works out too. But it's odd because like the mechanical engineer degree compared to like the audio production assistant or audio freelance, it's a bit different. Like the interview, he says, I asked at the end, you have a question for me? He says, yeah, so I see mechanical engineer. Can you tell me about that? Because it's a very sort of different. It still has an audio engineer, but it's not like the inverse, but it's the opposite.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. So we mentioned at the top of this that you're from Connecticut. What are the best and worst things about Connecticut?
Yeah. So what's the worst about Connecticut? Yeah.
No, well,
No.
no, I like to
No,
have
no.
like an honest opinion. Do you know what I mean? Because I ask a lot of my guests this when they're from a place I haven't interviewed from before, and I always like to get like an honest an account from that person. Because obviously, you don't want to like bury your hometown, but at the same time, like you're going to be honest about it. It's not like you're the mayor or something. You're going to give me like legit, like, well, this is good, this is shit, and this is how it is.
Yeah, I get it. That's why I say worse, because people like to sort of shit on Connecticut. Not too much. We do have our ups and downs. Basically, Connecticut is squeezed between Boston, New York City. So that's like we're sort of like that middle ground. And we have the city of Hartford, which kind of became a shithole. It fell apart, but starting to come back around. So hopefully it gets better. We everything's close together, because what I don't realize compared to like the West Coast or other, I feel like Europe's actually similar to New England or Connecticut, where everything's close together, but there's not too much to do. We don't have like the best beaches. We have some decent skiing, snowboarding if you drive up to Vermont, but we do have a top 5 tax rate, so that's great. People love that.
No taxes.
That's what.
Woo.
And I think we're like top 5 worst infrastructure and like roads like in the country too.
What's like potholes and stuff.
Oh yeah, everywhere. Like you can't walk without seeing a pothole. You can't drive without driving over one. So that's Connecticut. But
You've sold me.
Yeah. So yeah, move to Connecticut. There you go. We there's and also we've been the next state to legalize weed for the past 5 years. So maybe they'll legalize it soon, but they've been saying that for a while.
See, that'll be a big bonus. That'll drive more people into the state when they can legally smoke.
That would be. New York just legalized it, and so many people have been leaving Connecticut to go to Massachusetts to get the legal weed there, and then they just drive back over the border.
And they're legally allowed to carry it into the over?
Well, it's illegal, but you can legally buy it in Mass, and then you like tuck it under your seat or something, or the cop pulls you over, be like, "Hey, here's a little bit. Don't we good?"
You didn't see anything, pal. All right.
Yeah. I remember I got pulled over in New Hampshire with some friends, and like we had weed because we like drove through Massachusetts, and it's kind of funny that when we get pulled over, we're like wait, and then we realize, wait, it's legal here. This is completely fine.
This is fine. This is totally fine. Yeah, we're not doing anything illegal here. It's all right. It's all right. Yeah, relax, guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, that body's still in the trunk. Shit.
Oh crap! I knew we forgot something. God damn it.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I want to switch it up. What's the biggest life lesson that you've learned so far?
Oof. There's a few. I guess like I'm gonna say like 3 small ones. I don't know if that's cheating.
You can say as many as you want.
3 medium big, so not largest. So 3 big. Okay, so number 1, try to be a generalist in life. So what that means is you don't have to worry about being a specialist. You don't have to be a pure expert on everything. Just be a generalist, have a general idea of many things. Make sure your general idea is like accurate, and don't stress up too much. Don't give yourself imposter syndrome. Just understand what you know, try to develop it. In the end, that kind of feeds into stoicism of like control what you can control, whatever you can't control, so be it, whatever. That the butterfly effect, that's actually the way logo of my show. The Y has 2 arrows pointing off, and I can dive more into it, but like the general idea is when you come up to a road, any options in your life, there's options to choose from. You can go left or right, but just realize that they will have drastic impacts. It's literally the butterfly effect. Everybody's heard you step on butterfly and the freaking Toyota Camry in California blows up for whatever reason. So again, stoicism, don't let that stress you out too much, but just the smallest decisions can have the biggest impacts. And I forget what the third one was. The third one is don't forget what number 3 is.
Hey, fair enough, man. Fair enough. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. No, the third one is never speak about Fight Club. That's it.
Never speak about Fight Club. Okay. Shh. As we draw things to a close for today, do you have any upcoming projects that you'd like to share, or maybe some final thoughts that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Sounds good. So, upcoming projects. One I'm recording tonight is Silk Road. That's going to air in like 4 weeks, and that's about basically this whole the dark market and how drugs are sold over the dark web. That's going to be an exciting one. And I'm forgetting the other one. There's like 2 or 3 others, but there's one other exciting one. It'll come back to me in a minute probably. But some final thoughts is for the audience, just I guess whatever you want to do in life, just do it. Like we brought up before, but when you say you're going to do something or, oh, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that, they actually did studies where like you get the dopamine release in your brain and the satisfaction of doing something, even though you haven't done it, because you say, I'm going to do something. So you feel like you've already done it, and therefore you won't do that thing. So try to take action in your life. And when I say that, then when you see all those posts about we need to help this cause, or you see that mountain you want to hike, or you see that something you want to do, realize what I said before so that you actually do what you do in life. That's my final thoughts.
Thank you very much for sharing. I really appreciate it. And just thank you very much for agreeing to be a guest on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to you and listening to your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. And can't tell people where to go for my show.
Absolutely. Yes, please plug. Of course.
Yeah. So the advice, actually the most important advice, number one priority is just go to podcasttheway.com. Like just podcasttheway.com. Do that at the end. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I know that my listeners will definitely check you out. They're a loyal bunch. So but no, like I said, thank you very much for appearing on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. And to everyone listening to the Christian Reeve podcast, wherever you're listening, make sure that you check out all of the links, because we've actually got a Discord that you can join. It's my personal Discord, and you can find it on www.christianreeve.com/links, as well as every other link related to everything that I do. But in there's a particular channel where you can talk about the podcast. You can let me know your thoughts. You can also reach out to me personally on Instagram, YouTube, wherever you check me out, and just let me know your thoughts on what you think these episodes are like, the guests, who you'd like to see on the show in the future, what topics you'd like to hear in the future, and everything else in between. Leave us a follow or review on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. And as always, be safe, be well. I'll see you in the next one.